All right. Wow, that's a different message.
Uh-huh. Okay, we're recording. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to study a new paper, paper 48, the Urantia Life. And that begins on page 541.1 of the original book, or on paper 4801 in any book. I was also telling everyone that we did this in 2015, so there's 3 recordings out there on our website on both Vimeo and YouTube of this same paper from 2015. And I was telling everyone, I don't know if I can beat what I said in 2015, because it was I thought they were very good meetings back then from 2015. So if you have time, everyone at home, go out and look them up. They're on Vimeo and YouTube from 2015, paper 48, the Urantia Life. And we're going to try to outdo ourselves on this one tonight. We'll see. Let me warn you, though, on this first paragraph in 2015, there's Millie. On this very first paragraph in 2015, it took me 35 minutes to get off the first paragraph.
Wow. And Roger,
I think I can beat that, don't you?
Roger,
Yeah,
I might have the same questions as before.
well, that's fine.
There you go.
That's fine. Millie was there in 2015. Hi, Millie, when we recorded this the first time. And she commented on, we only got through 1 paragraph in 35 minutes. She said, I definitely got my preaching hat on that night. And she was right. So we're going to try to do better. Let's say a short prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for this wonderful group and come and listen to these meetings each time. Thank you for all those at home and all those many people that listen to our meetings. We thank you and we give you the praise. We pray that you'll open our hearts and minds, that we remember this stuff and we repeat it to other people so they can benefit from it too. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Man,
Amen.
And hello, Gary. I see Gary.
Hello. In some
Hello,
places,
Gary.
Hello. Some places in this lesson, I have the names of who read what.
Really?
And turning the page, it says me, Tim, Rodney, Diane, Roger, me, Tim, Rodney, Diane, Roger, me, Tim, and so forth.
Yeah.
So and whatever happened, where's Tim? I miss him. I miss him. I miss his questions.
He's working. He's got a job. He's working something. He's been trying to pop in when he can, but he's working a little bit later. So it's hard for him to make the meetings because it's be 3 o'clock in the afternoon for him out there. So that's kind of in the middle of his work day. But anyway, let's get started.
California or?
He's in Texas.
Oh, Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting. Last month, we had more views of our videos from Texas. I think it was 48 views from Texas last month than any other state. So
Wow.
That's interesting. And it was kind of funny. They sent me the stats. What was it there? The 8,900 and something views
Wow.
of our videos. So they're getting out there. People watch them anyway, sooner or later.
8,900 views for how
That
long?
was for a year, Gary. For a year.
Okay.
So
But still, with this type of video, that's pretty good.
that's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad, really.
Yeah.
You know, because this is hard stuff to stick with and watch all the way through, you know, unless you're very interested in it, especially listening to this crazy doctor go on and on and on. Never shuts up. Okay, let's get going. Let's talk about shutting up. Diane, would you take the first paragraph there?
The gods cannot, at least they do not, transform a creature of gross animal nature into a perfected spirit by some mysterious act of creative magic. When the creators desire to produce perfect beings, they do so by direct and original creation, but they never undertake to convert animal origin and material creatures into beings of perfection in a single step.
That is quite a paragraph to chew on.
Yeah, it is. Really, you can see how I can spend 35 minutes on this.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just
Or
hit the
they say that we're not going to be perfect.
that we're not going to be perfect. That's right. Contrary to popular belief, when you die
Exactly.
and you wake up, you are not a perfect person all of a sudden, right?
Mhm.
You're just as rotten as you were when you left here. The only difference is you have the experience of death, right? That's the only difference. So we've always been taught, you know, when we were going to church and we were younger, that we'd wake up in heaven, and that's what they call the mansion worlds. Everybody would be perfect. We'd all be singing all day and playing our harps, right?
Mhm.
Worshiping God and Jesus, and that's all we do all day long, right? And contrary to popular belief, this paper kind of blows that away in the water, doesn't it? Okay, so what they're telling us here, that the gods, notice it says gods, not God, the gods, that means all the deities, cannot, or at least they do not, transform us from our animal origins to some beautiful, perfect creature by magic, right?
Mhm.
All right. So, and that's just the way it is. They never try to convert anything that's animal origin or material to a perfect being in a single step, which they could, right? But why would they do that? They would steal us of the opportunity to experience all the things we're going to experience on our way to perfection, right? That's the
That's it.
big, you know. All right. Now, where's your 50 questions, Rodney, on this first paragraph?
Well,
I'm joking.
plus there would be no use for the supreme being.
There would be no use for the supreme being, because all of our experience that goes to the supreme being would not what? Would not happen, would it?
That's right.
If we didn't have these experiences perfecting ourselves. Okay.
And
So-
see, we just studied in the previous paper that the ones that did not get the adjuster that went directly to the probationary nursery
Yeah,
don't get to be finality.
they don't get to be finaliters because they don't do what? They don't experience
They don't.
this lifetime, right?
Exactly, right.
They don't experience this animal origin lifetime and build on that with your adjusters. Now, they will build on their experience when they get to the mansion world, but it's different than living this mortal experience. There's nothing to replace being immortal, is there? You just have to go through it, right? Kind of like getting married. There's nothing to that in the exchange is getting married. You have to experience it to understand, right?
Mhm.
Not always you live happily ever after, right?
That's right. It's work. Who was that? In
Yeah,
Congo the
I was
other
going to
night, he
say
said, "Get real. It's work." You know?
It is work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is quite in contrast to all the New Age books that have been out for ages that all say basically that it's suddenly a perfect world, everybody loves each other, and
Yeah.
there's no evil, there's no.
Doesn't happen that way, does it?
Yeah.
I bet the first
And
mansion
it's
world
very
is something to
logical,
see.
yeah.
You know, you think about all the barbarians that's come and gone in our life, in our history. I bet that first mansion world is just something we can't even imagine, because what do we have? We have all these different types of people that think all these different types of ways, and they're trying to teach us to all get along. Man, I wouldn't want that job. You know?
Hey, if we couldn't even get along in this world,
Really?
we're going to have so many other worlds. And when we get to the mansion world,
That's right. That's right. It's gonna be tough.
Roger,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Only one?
Yeah, and it's a weird,
Right.
but it's okay. In the first mention world, do we take space? Like, how large is it? Because I'm imagining it's very crowded there.
It must be very crowded, Jane, because the first mansion world is 10 times the size of Earth. Okay.
Mhm.
Okie dokie. But people could be there like to
Yeah,
get.
long periods of time. So we must be stuffed in there, right? I mean, think about it. I can't imagine how they get that many beings in such a small space. You know, you take the Earth and multiply it 10 times, we still have a lot of empty space, don't we? I mean, you think
Mhm.
about it, this
Yes,
planet
yes.
has a lot of empty space. But even though it's 10 times that, you got 10 times the creatures going there too, right?
Yeah.
Have to
I hope
ask,
that's the case.
how many planets does it serve?
Well, it serves
The local system.
yeah, the local
Local.
system, which would be 1,000 planets, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
And there's
Now,
no
we
ocean.
only have 619 that's inhabited so far, right? But remember, those planets that are getting inhabited now, by the time those beings start getting to the mansion worlds, those of the earlier times are already leaving the mansion worlds, right? So it's not like it's everybody there at the same time, unless you're really stupid and you don't get off the first mansion world very long, till it takes you a
You know-
million years or something, you know?
Mhm.
With those figures, mathematical figures and all that stuff, the next world may be very similar to an Ellis Island, a processing center. Just
Right.
get on through.
Yeah, get them through. Now we know that's the case with all the mansion worlds, right? If you're socially and spiritually higher, when you get to that first or second mansion world, they may just after 10 days move you on to the next one, right? Because you're on a higher level.
Mhm.
Okay, so not everybody just hangs out on that first mansion world. Now you got to remember though, there's going to be a heck of a lot of remedial people on that first mansion world, because we got a world full of stupidity on this planet, right?
Oh yeah.
We
Yeah,
really
but
do.
they could grade on the curve.
Yeah, let's hope so. You know, that's being nice. And I know my wife never likes me to tell people that there's a lot of stupidity out there, but it's just, I don't know what else to call it. You know, you have an opportunity in this life to learn about what's to come, and not only to learn about what's to come, learn about the next 1,000,000 or 2,000,000 or 5,000,000 or even 1,000,000,000 years ahead of yourself. At least you have the opportunity with this book to learn a little bit about it. You would think it would only be common sense you'd want to learn it, wouldn't you?
Well, that's right.
You know?
But sadly, though, they have put into the existing book that's on this world before the Urantia book came. They put a bunch of fearful verses and
They
attributed
did.
them to
And
God,
that's part of the problem, Bill.
and that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly part of the problem. That's why we don't teach the Bible in this class, do we? We teach the
Mhm.
Urantia book, because we hope that we are emotionally and spiritually coming above that sooner or later, right? That's what it boils down to.
Well,
So-
yeah, that you
yeah.
know,
Because
like
we
that
know
one
what we
verse.
said before. We had the opportunity for the last 2,000 years to learn all that's in the Bible, right? Multiple
Mhm.
times. So now since 1930, actually 1955, 54,
Right.
55, we've had the opportunity to expand our horizons, and those who understand what's available have started to expand their horizons.
Mhm.
But those who are stuck in that old regime will stay stuck in that regime until they get to the mansion worlds, and they're going to still have to learn it, right? That's
Yeah,
just
that verse.
that's the way it is.
That verse. John 1:5 says, "The light shines into the darkness, but the darkness does not comprehend it."
That's exactly what it's about.
Yep.
All right, Jane, let's take the next paragraph. Get off this first one. Millie, I made it in less time. I made it in 16 minutes. I'm doing better.
It's just so much to discuss.
I know.
Pick it apart.
That's right.
Okay. The Morontia life extending as it does over the various stages of the local universe career, is the only possible approach whereby material mortals could attain the threshold of the spirit world. What magic could death, the natural dissolution of the material body, hold that such a simple step should instantly transform the mortal and material mind into an immortal and perfected spirit? Such beliefs are but ignorant superstitions and pleasing fables.
Yeah.
Did you realize what they just told us? They just
Mhm.
told us all this stuff we used to believe in the Bible is what?
Ignorant,
Hogwash.
Fables.
Fairy tales.
Fairy
Fairy
tale
tales.
favors and ignorant superstitions, stupid
Superstitions, right.
superstitions, right?
And you know, Roger, when you hear it, as I do, as you know, 3 times a week, I
Yeah,
hear experts from the Old Testament.
right.
And I say to my husband, what a contradiction.
Yes,
How
That's
can you
right.
tell all the people God is love?
yeah,
And now we just read about vengeance, revenge, fighting, killing, and it's all approved and ordered by God.
yeah. And we know that's not the case, right? God doesn't do that. Yeah,
But
That's why I like what Jesus said in 159:4 about, do you think that God really told people to go out, kill all men, women, and children?
of course he didn't, right? I mean,
Right.
that's not the God we know that we've learned about in the Urantia book, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Right? And so when you come to that conclusion, but it's very hard to come to that conclusion because most of us spend our whole childhood and some of our adult lives sitting in churches every Sunday and listening to this, right?
Mhm.
Over and over and over again. And I can tell you, I studied that Bible. I studied it over and over and over again. And those same dichotomies came up over and over and over again. And there's no way to explain them out. I don't care what kind of Bible expert you are, there's not a way to explain something like that. It just doesn't work. Okay.
That's why I was never satisfied with the answers to the questions I always asked these various and sundry experts on the
Yeah.
Bible.
Yeah.
You know, just
Well,
left me
leaves you cold,
wanting.
leaves you empty, doesn't it?
Yeah, wanting.
Yeah, it does. And yet when we read this book, we are filled up with joy and information and
Mhm.
gives us more questions constantly. I can tell you,
like-
I've studied this
I-
book for years and I still have questions
Yeah.
that come up from
I
studying.
like to say that my adjuster leaped for joy
There you go.
when I discovered this book.
Now let's get back to this paragraph for a second because there's a couple things I want to point out. Okay. It says here in this paragraph that this is the only possible approach whereby material mortals could attain the threshold of the spirit world. What are they talking about?
Mhm.
They're talking about the Urantia life itself.
Right.
What are they saying? They're saying here the only possible way we can go from being material beings or human to be spiritual beings is go through this Urantia life process. And this Urantia life process, as we're going to learn in this paper, involves 570 transformations.
Mhm.
Okay, 570 different types of Urantia beings or levels. And you could even call this dimensions if you wanted to, right? Because the Urantia dimension is different than the physical dimension. And they talk about this in this paper. They talk how there's a physical dimension on the Urantia planets, on the mansion worlds, and there's a Urantia dimension in the Urantia worlds. So you're living in a dual dimension when you get to the first mansion world right off the bat. You have all the material aspects of it, and you have all the Urantia aspects of it. Okay. Now, why do you think we have material aspects of it? Because they have material beings on these worlds helping us all the way up to the 7 mansion worlds.
Mhm.
Okay. And who are these material beings? They're like the Sporangia. Okay. Remember reading about the Sporangia. And while I'm thinking about it too, there's good stuff. Y'all know how I feel about this Ascender's Handbook and the study aid. But I wanted to point out a couple things tonight that I don't know how much y'all are reading out of this book, but this just got so many wonderful things of it. What we're talking about tonight on the Ascender's Handbook, that's this one right here, okay? On page 32 is a wonderful breakdown of the super universe spheres on page 32, okay? And on this, it shows us the 7 super universes, Splandon, the minor, the major sectors, and the constellation in Salvington. Also, I wanted to point out from this one, let me see if I can find the page here again.
Mhm.
On page 4, there's another breakdown that's just wonderful on that too. So look that up when you have time. I miss Ed. He's the one that told us about this. I appreciate it so much. Also, on the study aids book, which looks like this, a Urantia book by Hera Davis, there are so many wonderful things in these 2 books. I just can't talk about them enough. But on this one, page 21, or actually 20 and 21, it looks like that. It has a breakdown of Urantia, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, Jerusalem, and there's also a little breakdown of the Urantia life on page 22 at the bottom. Okay,
Mhm.
that's a great little read too. Also, there are some images in this that are just unbelievable. I believe the images is in the Ascender's Handbook. I wanted to point out to y'all. Here we go. Well, here's the first one on page 11. All right. And that is the architecture spheres of Jerusalem and the surrounding satellites in the mansion worlds.
Yeah.
All right. That's just, they also have a thing on Urantia in here on page 22. But these are really interesting. This is page 27, and this is Salvington. It's a gorgeous picture, whoever she got to do that. There's another one in here, if I can find it. The super universe spheres. This is on page 32. And these are all the things we'll be talking about this week and the next couple of weeks. But you can look through that. You're going to find some just nuggets of gold in both of those. Okay.
Thank you.
Wanted to point those out because when I read through that, but every time I read through that book, I just want something short. It's a great little teaching aid. All right. The other thing in this paragraph I want to point out is they say here, what magic could death or the natural dissolution of the material body instantly transform the mortal into an immortal and perfected spirit? There's just no way to do that. And that's what the progression of these 570 different types of beings is all about. All right, this first picture we got here is us. We've seen this picture before. And this is the one when you get to the first mansion world. But on this, let me see if I can get it to stop it. There we go. It's highlighted again. There we go. It says, from the time leaving the material world until you are constituted a first stage spirit on Salvington. What's Salvington? That's the capital of our local universe, right? This is where Jesus lives. You will undergo just 570 separate and ascending Urantia changes. 8 of these occurs in the system. What are they talking about? They're talking about the 7 transitions on the mansion worlds and the 1 transition to Jerusalem, the capital. Okay.
Mhm.
And then you have 71 in the constellation. We're going to see a picture of this in a minute. And then 491 during your sojourn on the spheres of Salvington. So here's Urantia, okay? And this is the worlds of Urantia, all right? And this is so small. This is the 771 architectural spheres that surround Urantia, and Urantia is our constellation capital. And remember, there's 100 constellations in Nebadon, in our local universe. Okay, so there's 100 of these just like this in Nebadon. All right, and here is Salvington. This is our capital. This is where Jesus lives. And there on Salvington, there are 491 worlds. And this is some of the changes we're going to make in our Urantia form. All right. Okay, so now we're ready to move on. Let's, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. Always this Urantia transition intervenes between the mortal estate and the subsequent spirit status of surviving human beings. This intermediate state of universe progress differs markedly in the various local creations, but in intent and purpose, they are all quite similar. The arrangement of the mansion and higher Urantia worlds in Nebadon is fairly typical of the Urantia transition regimes in this part of Urvanton.
Okay, so all the local universe has the same type of situation where their mortals start out in these transition spheres. Okay, they're not all called mansion worlds for every single one of them, but they're similar to that, right? So that's the type of planets they use to help their beings along, becoming Urantia beings up to first stage spirits, just like we do. So this is pretty much the same through all the 7 super universes. That's what they're telling us. Okay, so it's nothing different from one local universe to another, that not that much. They're all along the same thing. All right, now this is where we get into some interesting stuff, the Urantia materials. Bill, would you take the first one there, please?
Sure. 1, the Urantia materials. The Urantia realms are the local universe liaison spheres between the material and spiritual levels of creature existence. This Urantia life has been known on Urantia since the early days of the planetary prince. From time to time, this transition state has been taught to mortals, and the concept in distorted form has found a place in present-day religions.
Okay, y'all, I'm going to shock you. What they're telling us here is this: the Urantia existence has been taught to us over and over again. Okay, started with the planetary prince. You know what the planetary prince was?
Caligastia.
Yeah, that's it. And the Caligastia 100. So they started teaching us about this back then. Okay, then we had the rebellion. So who was the next beings to teach us about this? Adam and Eve. Okay, so Adam and Eve taught the people of the garden the same thing all over again. All right, and then who was the next teacher?
Melchizedek.
You said that.
That's right. Yeah, Melchizedek taught us about the Urantia existence too. And then came Jesus. Jesus taught about the Urantia existence. He not only taught us about the Urantia existence, he appeared as a Urantia being. Remember?
That's right.
900 something times, right? To 9 or 17 times to 900 something people. Okay. So he taught us about the Urantia existence, and then he even demonstrated to us the Urantia existence. Okay. So between Jesus and now, we have morphed and changed this whole concept of Urantia life into something unrecognizable Because do you guys ever remember learning about the Urantia existence when you were a kid in kindergarten or anyplace else?
No,
No.
Never heard of it.
The best you could say was when you studied Paul, and he would talk about going to the third heaven and the seventh heaven.
Yeah, that's the closest we got. What
Yeah.
closest we got. So this has been out there.
My father's house, there are many mansions.
Many mansions. That's
Yeah.
That's
right.
right.
That's right. So we got kind of cheated for in between the planetary prince and the current day, cheated out of learning about this. So what did they do? They brought us the Urantia book, and now we're getting taught about it all over again. Okay,
Mhm.
but it has been taught to us. It's been out there, and it's found what it says here, what a distorted place in today's present day religion.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting that even in the Book of Mormon, I can tell you this because when I was 12 to 14 years old, I was a member of the Mormon church. Okay. And they talk about the Urantia life in the Mormon church. They actually talk about Urantia beings in the Mormon
Really?
church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
So
they call it that?
they call it that, the Urantia state. Okay. So it was taught in the Mormon church. Now, the interesting point is this: they got it from the Book of Mormon. Okay.
Mhm.
But the concept and the term was never originated in the Book of Mormon. Okay. But that's where it came from. So I thought that would be an interesting side note.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's keep going here. So it has been taught in distorted forms up into today's religions. Okay. So Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. The Urantia spheres are the transition phases of mortal ascension through the progression worlds of the local universe. Only the 7 worlds surrounding the finaliter sphere of the local systems are called mansion worlds. But all 56 of the system transition abodes in common with the higher spheres around the constellations and the universe headquarters are called Urantia worlds. These creations partake of the physical beauty and the Urantia grandeur of the local universe headquarters spheres.
Okay, so they make them as beautiful as they can so that we get a foretaste of the headquarters spheres. Okay, from Jerusalem all the way up to Salvington. Okay, because they're all architectural spheres. Now, only the 7 worlds that surround the first world, the finaliter's world, are called mansion worlds. Okay, probably because of Jesus's statement about in my Father's house there are many mansions, right? That's what they're called, mansion worlds. But all 56 of these worlds that surround the 7 satellites are all considered Mansonia worlds or Urantia worlds. Okay, so they're all basically the same thing. They're architectural spheres, but all of them will have what? Abodes that we would consider mansions. You got it? Okay, but only the 7 are really called mansion worlds. When we leave the 7 mansion worlds and go on to Jerusalem, then we will no longer call the worlds we go to, that the next step is they will no longer be called mansion worlds. They'll be called Urantia worlds. Okay, so that's the difference. All right, let's move on. Gary, would you take the next one?
Okay. All of these worlds are architectural spheres, and they have just doubled the number of elements of the evolved planets. Such made-to-order worlds not only abound in heavy metals and crystals, having 100 physical elements, but likewise have exactly 100 forms of unique energy organizations called Morantia material. The master physical controllers and the Morantia power supervisors are able so to modify the revolutions of the primary units of matter and at the same time to transform these associations of energy as to create this new substance.
Okay, so there you have it. You have two types of material on the mansion, all architectural worlds or the mansion worlds. Okay. Excuse me. You have not only the physical type of elements, the 100 physical elements, but you also have 100 elements of Morantial material, just like the 100 physical. Okay, so on the same planet, you have both the Morantia and the physical. So if you think about it, the master physical controllers and the power supervisors control the revelations of the cell of the molecules to make it on either the physical dimension or the Morantia dimension. Got that? So you have two different things going on at the same time. So you could say you're living in a dual dimension society when you get to the first mansion worlds. Now, will it always be that way? Probably not. As you go higher and higher through the mansion worlds, it will become more and more just Morantia, and they'll be adding to it more and more of the spiritual aspect, which is totally different too. Okay, so as we go up in planets, you increase the number of molecules and the dimension changes slightly with each one. Jane, go ahead.
Roger, is it because I'm thinking, is it possible, or is it because in the first mentioned word we could shift sometimes from a material to Morantia, like if the growth, you know how we do it on Earth here too, sometimes I could be behaving very spiritually and sometimes I may react totally lower human.
Right, right. Well, yeah, your reaction can be that way, but your Morantia being will not change, Jane. Once you become a first stage Morantia being, when you get to the mansion world, you wake up, you're given a new physical form, right? And that physical form is 100% Morantia. It has nothing left that's finite any longer. It becomes a
But
Morantia being.
do we have
But-
thought?
But your thoughts can revert back to that, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like earned space. You can always go back to that which you learned before. And we're going to find out later on in this this paper, when they talk about reversion directors, one of their jobs is to help us revert our memories back to what? Back to the physical state. Okay. And the things we did in the physical state as entertainment and reversion from the stresses and strains of living in this new Morantia existence. You know, it's kind of like they talk about the work of in the Morantia worlds. We're assigned certain specific tasks when we get there. Half of our time is spent working. The other half is for leisure. Okay. It's not like digging ditches. It's not like you're going to sit at McDonald's and say, you want fries with that. That's not the work they're talking about, right? That's menial work. The work you will be doing is work to improve your spiritual mind and your spiritual existence so you're ready to go on to the next step. And that's what they consider work. And that's what our work will be. Now, there's going to be lots of activities associated with that. Okay. And some of them will seem probably to us menial tasks. We may be assigned to go out and help the children that gets there, or the young people that gets there, that sort of thing. So that is all part of work. But the reversion we're talking about back to more of a physical memories and state, That's the work of the reversion directors. And Jane, when you talk about sometimes you're more spiritual than you are others, in essence, that's what that is. We're reverting back to our previous mindset in many things. And that's where the problem comes in too. That's where we have to be retrained, and these concepts have to be removed from our psyche, that our reaction, when you meet somebody you don't like in this world, you're fighting with them constantly, arguing with them, that sort of thing. In the new world, in the Morancha world, we'll retrain that that's not a proper reaction to do, right? So that's part of the training. They're removing the mark of the beast, and that's part of that removal of the mark of the beast. But I want to make sure we understand that these Morancha worlds are part and part Morancha. They're not 100% Morancha like we would expect them to be. So when you go out and you look at plants and animals and things like that, some of them are going to be physical animals, some of them are going to be physical plants, just like on this planet. Okay. Others will be Morancha animals and Morancha plants. So when you consume, when you eat on the Morancha world, you need what? Morancha food. So that will be from what? Morancha plants. Because your conversion of that energy will be different than it was when you were on the planet. Okay.
You know,
So
if
Roger,
you go ahead, if
Go
you
ahead,
think
Derek.
about it, if you think about it, having a dual world as we transition from this world to the next, okay, it kind of makes sense, because I understand when we go over, our body changes, but we don't lose the entire physical body. Like we lose the function of elimination, a few other things, but our body is improved, but it's not strictly spiritual. It's also in a physical state.
It's a physical vessel, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like wishy-washy.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
makes any sense?
yeah, it
So
does.
it's so we're kind of in between, and we're being put in an in-between world. Maybe as we evolve on that state, we become more spiritual and lose the physical aspects for the next
Yeah.
world. So
Diane just hit
this
it on the
makes
head.
good sense, huh?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Diane just hit it. It's a transition world. That's why they call it, right? You're in transition. You're in transition from the physical to the Morancha, right? So being a transition world, you have to rethink, refigure. Everything about you is going to change, because you're going to wake up with this perfect body that doesn't die, doesn't get sick, doesn't do all these things, the things we're used to. So if you're somebody like, well, I hate to say this, but my mother, that complains constantly about every ache and pain and all that, somebody like that is going to be lost when they get there, because they won't have anything to complain about, right? But that psyche of constantly doing that over and over and over again is ingrained in one's mind. So you have to be retrained not to think that way anymore, right? It's just like if you go out into the world and everybody's your enemy, right? Everybody you meet, you have conflict with, you don't want to get along with, and all these things. You're going to have to rethink your psyche when you go out and meet these new types of beings and new types of creatures, because the point is we have to get along with everyone. You don't get along with everyone, you're not going to get off that first world. That first world's going to get real crowded real fast, right? So that's what Jane was
That's what
talking about
Jesus-
earlier.
That's what Jesus tried to teach us, and
Right.
when he was here,
Yeah,
you know.
that's what's all.
And-
That's what loving your brothers and sisters is all about.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, at the end, before he left the world, he says, love your neighbor as I have loved you,
Right.
rather than love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a
true.
higher form of love.
higher form of love, a fatherly love, right?
Hmm.
Rodney, did you have something you wanted to add? You say something?
Yes, for me, it's hard to wrap my mind around us sitting in a classroom half the time and freedom the other half.
Uh-huh.
Now, I know there must be some type of economy on these worlds.
Right.
So to me, although it may be different, but it looks to me like perhaps we still have work to do there.
We do. It's
And
not a class.
perhaps
Yeah,
through
it's
through
not
our
sitting for a
work
yeah,
is how we're learning.
that's right, Rodney. You got the right idea. It's not sitting in a class learning. It's doing things with other people learning, right?
Yeah, it's still an economy.
It's still, yeah,
So we're
it's,
going to have jobs.
you'll still be doing things, right? If you're, let's say you're a skilled carpenter, or you're a skilled, let's say you arrange flowers, your whole life. You get to the mansion worlds, they still have flowers, and they're going to still need people to help do that sort of thing if you want to do it, right? But in doing that, you will be learning the lessons that they want you to learn, and that's part of the work, right? So I think you got the right idea. I don't think we'll be sitting around in classrooms. I can't even imagine that. As much as I went to school, I don't want to go through that.
No,
I
me
really
either.
do. Yeah.
But I
think
will build.
yeah, I'd be glad to
Grab me
build.
that 2x6 by
Yeah.
Marancha piece of
Yeah.
material.
I'll tell you what, I've been out painting the house, and you wouldn't believe all the things I think about painting the house.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
It's therapy.
yeah, that's right. That's right. All right,
Well, how do they do the Morantia motor though?
well, that's something totally different. That's new to us. So
Yeah.
we might actually be in some sort of class. Of course, the class may be outside and in a nice surroundings, with mountains and rivers in front of us. Who knows? It might be like Jesus taught, next to the water somewhere, something, So, there's lots of possibilities. I think they try to keep us entertained. Okay, let's go on with the next paragraph. Gary, did you just read? I think
Yes.
Millie's up then. Millie? Yeah, you're muted.
Where are we?
Oh, the early Morantia life, 4814.
The early Morantia life in the local system is very much like that of your present material world, becoming less physical and more truly Morantial on the constellation study worlds. This is something that Gary was asking about. When we cross over, we'll still be partially physical. We'll still be able to hear and
Yes.
touch and taste.
Touch and
but
feel
we're
and
still,
taste.
we're still
We'll have, yeah, we'll have, I think it's 47 senses, Millie. So they got to have something to do, right?
And as you advance to Salvington spheres, you increasingly attain spiritual levels.
And that's the goal, right? To get us more and more spiritual. So as we advance from planet to planet, sphere to sphere, we become more and more spiritual up to all 570 of these.
That's
right?
the plan anyway.
That's the plan, the big plan. All right, Diane, would you take the next one?
The Morantia power supervisors are able to effect a union of material and of spiritual energies, thereby organizing a Morantia form of materialization, which is receptive to the superimposition of a controlling spirit. When you traverse the Morantia life of Nebadon, these same patient and skillful Morantia power supervisors will successfully provide you with 570 Morantia bodies, each one a phase of your progressive transformation. From the time of leaving the material worlds until you are constituted a first stage spirit on Salvington, you will undergo just 570 separate and ascending Morantia changes. 8 of these occur in the system, 71 in the constellation, and 491 during the sojourn on the spheres of Salvington.
All right, and this is a picture of that. It shows the 591 transformations on Salvington. That's 490 on the spheres that surround it, and then one on Salvington itself. Okay, and then we have the Urantia. Okay, we have 70 on the major spheres and one on Urantia, so that's 71. Okay, on Jerusalem in the Satania system, we have 7 on the mansion worlds plus 1 on Jerusalem, so that's 8, and that's all 570, right? I keep trying to make that 590. I don't know why. I've always done that. Okay.
You know, and each level that we attain, it must give us a very satisfying feeling so that we're progressing. So there's always that feedback,
Right.
you know, to really encourage you and to.
Well, also there we have to remember we're becoming more and more spiritual as we do that. So we're divorcing ourselves. That, you know, if you want to think about it this way, with each sphere that you go higher, you remove part of your human or finite and early Urantia self and replace it with the spirituality. Okay, so as you go through these transformations, one of the reasons they have to rekey your body, in other words, change your body with each one, is you're becoming more and more spiritual. So as you become more and more spiritual, your body has to reflect that spirituality, which is hard to understand. So they have to tweak your body as you become more and more spiritual, so that when you jump off from Salvington into the minor sector, you will be a first stage spirit, right? You will no longer be a Urantia being. The Urantia experience is the in-between time between mortal and between spiritual, right? So when you stand before Jesus and he says, well done, my good and faithful service, he gives you your walking papers to leave the local universe, doesn't he? Okay. And when you receive those walking papers, you'd be certified as a first stage spirit. You're no longer a Urantia being anymore. Okay. Now think about it this way. What is Jesus? Jesus is a spirit being, right? They have to attune our eyesight up, or his appearance down, one of the two, for us to even see Jesus. Think about it that way, or Michael, whichever you want to call him. Because why? He's a spirit personality. And as we go through these transformations, we will recognize more and more and more spirits. Okay. So that when we stand before Jesus, we'll recognize him like all the other spirits we've already met. Right.
And if I recall correctly, we got a taste of that on the Transfiguration.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Jane.
Some people believe here on earth that if they do a lot of spiritual practices, that for a lack of a better definition, I'm gonna use you know, the spiritual eye, you know, how the chakras and the Kundalini and all these wonderful words that are used.
Right.
And they believe that the human body actually changes on earth as they evolve and become enlightened. Is there such a truth in the Urantia book, Revelations? Any reference?
Not to that, Jane.
Okay.
No, because let me tell you why there's not. The physical body, the physical makeup of the human body is totally finite. It's not Urantia and it's not spiritual. Okay. That is our being. We are finite beings. We won't move until to that realm until we die and go to the first mansion world. Not at all. So what we're talking about here, Jane, is this. It's the human mind projecting the thoughts of these things onto itself. Okay. So I know this from teaching self-hypnosis for years back in the 70s. Okay. I went through tons of classes on hypnosis, subnipulant wake and suggestion, astral projection, all these different things. Some of these things, Dr. Greer, we have talked about this when we talked about the UFO stuff. Dr. Greer was involved in some of these things, trying to use the human mind to astral project yourself to another country and discover what they have planned against the United States. All right. Now, when he figured out that's what they were trying to use him for, he quit there. That's when he stopped. But all these things are phenomena of the human mind, and that's part of what? The mind circuit. Okay. So anything like that is contained or kept inside the mind circuit of the infinite spirit. Okay. So there is, I hate to say this on camera, but there is no such thing as a third eye. Doesn't exist. It's the imagination of those who are imagining these things. Okay. And you can hypnotize yourself into believing almost anything. Okay. I can tell you that because I've done it myself. I went and had my teeth worked on under hypnosis because I became allergic to the anesthetic they were using on my teeth. Okay. So I know you can cut off pain signals. You can do a lot of things with the human mind. But what you're talking about, exactly what you're talking about, Jane, is those things which are not possible until you become a Urantia being. That's just the way.
Yeah,
it is.
And yet still it, because I've studied this too, but doing that kind of meditation, it allows you to be more focused and on spirituality. And it really is, it is
And
helpful.
open-minded on
Yeah, and it's very
It is.
helpful. It's a
Yeah.
helpful path. And I
it does. Yeah.
I don't regret anything I've done in that arena. I'm
No.
thrilled that I actually have those
And I
experiences.
tell you what, Dr. Greer has convinced me he is communicating with these aliens through this mind circuit. That's what I really truly believe. So there is
thing
something
about
sending your thoughts out over the mind circuit and getting a response. That's just the way it is, right? And honest to God, when I was taking astral projection and hypnosis, in my mind, I swear I took trips to places I'd never been before. So I don't know what it is. I can't say for sure, but I do know that as physical human beings, we're only capable of certain things, right? And when you get out that realm of the physical part of it, we're limited by our bodies. Is what it is. That's exactly what it is. Now,
well, that's
keep in mind, though. Keep in mind, you have people like Adam and Eve and some of their descendants. They had what? Telepathy. They could communicate over the pathways to each other and to their children. Okay, so there's lots of possibilities. Okay, I don't want to discount it completely, Jane, but I do believe it's limited. Okay.
Dr.
Yeah.
Greer has said that he can communicate. Well,
Yeah.
you said you're only limited by our body. I think we're only limited by what we think our mind can do.
We're
We have
limited
no
by our
clue.
minds. That's
We
right.
have no clue what our mind can do.
No, we haven't exercised that, Millie, so we haven't developed it, right?
Yes.
And
That's what
the
it boils
thing about
down
it
to.
is even the thought adjuster, I remember when we were studying about the thought adjuster said he had a hard time contacting with us in the material body because our brains are so active and so busy, it's hard to get through.
It is. It is. It makes perfect sense.
And so
Think about how hard it is for you to sleep sometimes,
right.
I mean, think about that. You
Mhm.
lay down and your mind won't shut off, and you just can't get rest. I mean,
Right.
that's just the way it
And
is.
so that's, Psalms 46:10, be still and know I am
Right.
God, works along with Isaiah 30:21.
Yeah, we
You
got
will
it,
hear
Bill.
a voice behind you saying, this is the way,
Yeah.
whether you should go to the right or the left. And it's a hard thing to do, very hard thing to do.
All right, well,
Thank
let's
you,
stop
Roger.
there. Huh? Sure.
Thank you.
Let's stop there because we're out of time. Actually gone over tonight. Let's say a little prayer and we'll knock it off for tonight. Let me stop the share. And that we'll take it up on 48:16 next time. And let's have a little prayer and we'll quit for tonight. Sweetie, would you like to close us in prayer?
Father God, we are so grateful for this opportunity to study and to be together and share our thoughts and to study and learn and to express ourselves and to consider all possibilities. We know that there's so many different levels that we have to ascend, and we are grateful and satisfied that the path is already laid out for us, and that as we continue this life after this life, that we will continue to grow until we reach our destination. We just thank you so very, very much from the depths of our soul for the Urantia book, and also the opportunity to study it with others. We are just very grateful. It is in your name, Jesus Christ, Michael of Nebadon. We thank you. Amen.
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 Thank you for everyone at
Amen.
home joining us. Please come see us again. Stop the recording here.